Hey everyone, welcome back to the devlog. As you can see here, we've gone a little bananas with things. We have a lot new stuff to talk about. I was hoping to actually make more progress this week, but looking at kind of how this is looking, maybe I did make more progress than I thought. So the big things here are we have two new towers. We have the banana tower, or monkey tower, and the idea is going to be a monkey that throws bananas on the field. You can see here, and they kind of lay traps so that enemies who walk over them get really, really heavily slowed. So you want to place these in your maze, and then you can have them essentially store up and stockpile, so enemies who get to a certain point of the maze, they really have to burn through all these slows before they can keep progressing. I also have the bird tower. You can see here, it kind of flies back and forth, and what it's doing is it's damaging anyone inside this line that it's traveling. And the final big thing to really note here is the towers that have these much more glowing platforms that they're on. These are actually upgraded towers, so now you can actually upgrade towers. So this flintlock is level 1. We can upgrade to level 2. Same with this one. This one's back here to help me kind of catch some leaks. If you saw while I was playing through that wave, and we'll do it again just so you'll probably see it this wave, the slimes also got a new behavior, which is after a certain point, they'll try and jump around past your maze. So some of these will probably start to try and do it soon. Yep, that one jumped. It went backwards. This one covered quite a big gap, and this one actually might go, which is why I have this tower over here. And you can see what's interesting about it is I've actually had to start kind of building my maze differently. I kind of have this lane to catch people who try and jump too far, and then they end up circling back into the maze. So definitely just a lot of miscellaneous things, getting unique enemy behaviors, trying to get some unique tower types in to make it feel more like a game. Oh, is it gonna go? Just barely got it. But cool, let's go into detail some of these. So first things first, we have the monkey tower. Right now it's just a banana. I did have a monkey I tried to make, but yeah, I still am working on my blender skills. It's not good yet. So we're just gonna stick with the banana, and the idea here is that it basically throws a lobbing banana. That is the visual for the actual banana going onto the field, and then it creates this deployable banana, which if an enemy walks into it, it has a slow effect. A few things that it's doing is it's actually kind of randomizing the offset so that multiple bananas can be on the same space, and the first one the enemy runs into burns through it, so that you're not just immediately, like if there's 8 bananas on top of each other, you're not trying to figure out which banana is going to trigger. And the other kind of interesting thing about the bananas is I had to do a whole bunch of logic. So for example, if I have this tower, I don't want people to just kind of AFK here and get a whole bunch of bananas on the field, so they actually only activate on the wave. And then I did have to do quite a bit cleanup on regards to like what happens if I try and build something on top of where bananas are. So I did implement some logic to make sure that it would actually get rid of these properly. So a lot of these ended up taking a lot of extra work to try and make working, or to make work the way that I'd want to. And there's no better example of that than the bird tower. Another attempt at modeling. This one I think went better, which is nice. I got to actually do some hand-painted texturing. And I think this one turned out nicer. I'm starting to kind of develop a flow for Blender that is working. Actually making animals or people is definitely still out of my wheelhouse, but objects is not too bad. But the idea here is that this is actually a connected tower, right? So when the bird flies, it needs to know that it's flying between these 2 points. And so this created a whole new, you can see I have new action build connected over here, which involved creating a whole new enum type to handle this, a whole new logic string to handle this. In the BP, I have to do a whole new handling of this connected towers. They need to kind of know about each other, and they need to both be built at the same time. And I need to wait until I place 2 of them down before I actually build any single one of them. This is where I think spaghetti code is starting to I'm probably going to have to go back here and refactor a whole bunch of things, because having to construct a struct using a data struct is starting to weigh heavily as I try to implement these. So I'll have to probably go back and clean this up at some point. But it was nice to actually have this new type of connectedness, because in the future I might have towers that want to care about locations of other towers, or I might want to build multiple at once. So it's kind of nice to have this type of tower type kind of established. The bird itself is pretty straightforward. I used some simple primitives just to make a shape, because I didn't want to spend time modeling the bird, because again, animals. I probably will end up just spending a whole bunch of time to make something I don't like. But the idea here is that basically it knows its parent tower, it knows the second tower it's going to, and it's just going to go back and forth between them. And then once it actually gets to one of the towers, it's going to wait for a little bit. And then once the waiting time is finished, it's going to flip around and go back to the other tower. And then it just has a hitbox on it, this capsule. And then when that overlaps, we're going to deal some damage. I did have to do a few things like actually keeping track of the enemies I've already hit, because if I didn't do this, it would kind of multi-overlap in some cases and apply multiple instances of damage when it shouldn't. So every time it goes to flip around, it clears this hit enemy list so that it makes sure it only hits enemies once. So these are the new tower types. The only other type of new tower that was made is, you can see here in this drawer, we have the tier 2s. So each upgrade is actually its own tower, and the reason I want to do that is so that I can make sure I change the model out. If I want to do anything fancy with, like maybe for a tier 2 cannon, you'll see mini cannonballs kind of around here piled up. So I want to make sure it's a separate entity so I can more easily handle the style of them. And then when we actually go making them, if we go to our data, our towers, you can see here now we have these entries for these tier 2s. And then on the flintlock, we have the concept of, this is the upgrade tower. So this is what it knows to replace that tower with. And this is how we control the upgrade cost and all the stats of everything. You can see that the upgrades are about 2.5 times the cost, but they do 6 times the damage. So they're definitely your most efficient way of spending your money. So you're better off building a few towers to cover all the spots of your maze. Really focus on using the mazing blocks to lay out the path you want enemies to follow, and then upgrade these. That's definitely your most efficient way of kind of building your maze out, which is what we wanted to go for, so that's good. The last thing that I want to talk about this week is the slimes. So as you saw there, the slimes, they have that behavior of jumping. We'll just speed up here so you can kind of see them bounce around. They basically pick a random amount of squares to go before they try and jump, and it's about 10 to 25, so they only really do this behavior at the start of the maze. But getting this to actually work was a little bit tricky. They inherit from the base enemy class, but I basically had to override everything that base class was doing, because to get them to do this logic, this is just a re-implementation of pretty much the same logic, which is a little bit of extra checking for this jump counter that I had to do. And then once they actually decide that they're going to jump, they then go through this timeline. They have an arc that they're going to travel. They'll have a target that they're trying to go towards, and then they'll land at that location. It's not so much that this was super difficult to implement. It's more that I was hoping to be able to reuse some of the tech from the base enemy implementation a bit more easily, and that wasn't the case. So again, going back to this player inputs, where I had to really do a lot of stuff manually, override a lot of things, add some new functions that feel like we're making a lot of assumptions that probably aren't safe assumptions to make. This is kind of one-off. It doesn't feel super reusable. I might spend some time just going back into here, making some of these more generic functions. I did a little bit of that with this check cost. This used to be further making this this node longer, but now I can kind of use that more generically, which is nice. So I'll probably go through and try and de-spaghettify a lot of this code. But yeah, that's the progress this week. It was nice to be able to actually get some new tower types. I definitely am a fan of the banana one. Having the kind of idea that rather than just having a slow that you hit a target with and they're slowed, you get to kind of like stockpile these slows at different parts of your maze. And having the slime be able to jump over things and making that changed a lot of how I built my maze and how I handled things. And since I knew the logic, I could kind of build around it, and players can kind of learn that logic. It's probably too punishing right now, but it was definitely interesting to have to think differently about how I've been building the maze. Because I've been obviously playtesting this quite a bit. Like I just play it and do a few rounds of it a lot. And so having a reason to build my maze differently, both from the banana and the slime, was really nice. I was hoping the bird would give me a similar feel, but it doesn't quite feel useful enough. Because where this is really good is long straight sections where the enemies are going to be running in a straight line, and that just doesn't really naturally occur, and building a maze towards that often ends up in a weaker maze. So I might end up having to rethink this bird structure a little bit, but we'll see. Also, again, another quick style video. Again, this week is a little bit crazy. There's some stuff going on that is taking up a lot of my time. I was happy to be able to make progress at all this week, actually. I was worried that I actually wouldn't make any. But again, that means another quick style, just walking through it with you guys rather than a more edited thing. I'm hoping I can go back to doing some edited stuff soon, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. This might be the style that I have to go with just to make sure I can get these out and kind of keep everything updated rather than letting it sit for too long or not giving updates for too long, because that's how you end up not getting updates. So we'll probably keep doing this style for a little bit, and then I'll try and find opportunities to do a few more edited videos. But yeah, I'm not sure what I actually want to work on this week, so I'll probably actually want to get the other enemies fleshed out. I did start to do that. You can see here on the dungeon creeps, I've renamed this to Goblin and this to Troll. And so I want to give them slightly unique behaviors as well, and maybe even give them some models just to differentiate them so they're not just recolored slimes. But that's probably what I'll focus on. And then once we have the enemy types set up, and we have our tower types and we're happy with them, and we have upgrades for each of our towers, we'll probably need a tier 3 upgrade. That'll basically be like the vertical slice. And so that'll probably be something I upload to Itch, just so people have a chance to be able to try it out and see how it feels. It'll definitely be very rough and prototypey, but it'll be playable, and that's the most important thing. So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you next week.